Cincinnati Bengals and the New Orleans Saints. This was the second ticket that went into my account. I took the Bengals on the money line at -115 when this opened at Cincy 1. It is now sitting Cincy 2. 43.5 to 43.5 is your total. Adam, this one's very easy for me. Who in the hell are the Saints going to throw the ball to? And that is basically the handicap in this game. It looks like they could be without wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 in this game. We don't know the Olave situation. And here's the thing. Steven talked about it whenever we were talking about just the previous game here in the Vikings and Dolphins, is with this new concussion protocol, we don't know how easy it's going to be to clear. Like, we don't know what they're going to let people do and not do and all the different things like that and whatnot. We know for sure it looks like Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry are not going to be able to go. So certainly 2 of the top 3 wide receivers not going to be out there. And now Jameis Winston is practicing in a limited fashion. I think it's an upgrade for my bet if Jameis plays with a broken back, so we'll see how that all plays out as well. But look, Marshawn Lattimore, highly questionable to play in this game, and even if he does, we know corners that are injured typically either get re-injured in the game or just are very, very ineffective. And now the Bengals trot out, the best trio of wide receivers, though T. Higgins is questionable for them, but Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase could certainly get it done. Hayden Hurst at tight end. I think there's just a mismatch here. The Saints don't get any pressure either. For whatever reason, they've not been able to pressure the quarterback so far this season. And that is the real big key here for me outside of the injury report, is that we know Joe Burrow and this offensive line has not gelled yet. They've not figured things out. But fortunately, they should get time here because the Saints have not figured out how to get pressure on the quarterback so far this year. So anyway, it is a fairly straightforward bet for me, and I actually really do like this one.
So, Matt, this is one of the strangest games, not just this season, but in NFL history. I have been informed that the New Orleans Saints are not required to beat the Cincinnati Bengals this week, because the Cincinnati Bengals have declared that they're going to beat themselves once again. Zach Taylor has decided that he doesn't need to worry about whether Joe Burrow gets pressured. He's just going to keep running the ball. The Cincinnati Bengals are a team I cannot trust. And right now, I look at this game and think to myself, this has the makings of like 14-11 on the board, and I decided that I don't see how Cincinnati is going to beat anybody by more than a score. So the other half of my teaser with Jacksonville is actually New Orleans plus 8.5. Now, that doesn't say that I think New Orleans is going to A, play great, B, win outright. It says that I don't trust Cincinnati to run the score up on anyone right now. We like to talk about the advanced numbers a lot on our podcast. Right now, early down EPA for Cincinnati, 31st in the league. We don't have to get too complicated, though. We can use basic metrics like yards per play, 31st in the league, yards per rush, 30th in the league. And if you heard Joe Burrow talk after the loss to Baltimore, he said, we're not getting the looks to get the big plays anymore, right? And how did they win last year? They won with explosive plays. They won being able to throw the ball up to Jamar Chase when they really needed to. So it seems to me that Cincinnati, at least mentally, is in a little bit of the space that Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City were last year, where they're having to adjust to the fact that they can't go over the top. The problem is they're adjusting with Zach Taylor as opposed to adjusting with Andy Reid. Zach Taylor is fortunate that this team got its way to a Super Bowl, because what we've seen from him is basically a resume that would get a lot of coaches fired. He just has too much talent around him and too much variance. It's gone his way for it to happen. I have New Orleans plus 8.5 in the tees.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, listen, the thing that really just kind of changed it for me, Stephen, is just like, the one thing that has shown up every single week so far this year is been Cincinnati's defense, and they've played really stout. I don't know without any playmakers. And again, Olave very well might play. We keep talking about this. We have no idea we don't know what this concussion protocol looks like and what it's going to take to clear and get to play and all that. But I mean, at the very least, looks like they're going to be without 2 of the 3 wide receivers, could be without all 3. And I just don't know how the Saints score the ball in this thing. But Adam, you're exactly right. I mean, they are doing to Joe Burrow this year exactly what they did at the beginning of the year. Well, no, they did it all year to Patrick Mahomes. It's just Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes figured it out last year how to beat it. Can Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor figure out how to beat it? You're right. That is that's the real bugaboo in all of this. Steven, what are you looking at in this game?
No bet for me in this one, but to drive your point home, Joe Burrow was number 1 in completion percentage over expectation last year. He's currently 18th. He's struggling with these 2 deep zones and being patient to put together long drives. On top of that, you mentioned the Saints wide receiver injuries. T. Higgins with that ankle is now back-to-back DNP as well. And with him not on the field, it's allowing defenses to provide more help on Jamar Chase. Let's not forget that Joe Burrow has targeted T. Higgins just as much as he has targeted Jamar Chase, even though Chase is the one that gets all the headlines and the accolades. So they started to get some chunk plays versus the run against Baltimore if you watched that game last week, but New Orleans is number 1 in the league in rush EPA. So tough matchup for this Bengals offense. As much as I really want to try and keep the faith with them, like, this is not an easy matchup going to New Orleans here, despite the Saints not having their wide receivers. And if Olave plays, slam dunk teaser for me with Adam. Eli Hershkovich on the Beat the Closing Line podcast, and also in his column, likes the Saints this week to cover. He's nervous about the Bengals rush defense. He thinks the numbers are better than what they actually are, considering they haven't played a lot of good rushing offenses, and evidenced by one of the bottom 10 rushing defenses last week against the Ravens. And New Orleans is even better statistically running the ball than the Ravens are with Lamar Jackson. So I think a lot of concerns here to just automatically bet the Bengals to cover this on the road.
This will be interesting. I just have a different view of the offensive standpoint from the Saints, basically more than anything else, right? I just don't know how they score the ball. I mean, look, they look fine last week against the worst defense that maybe we've ever seen fielded on an NFL team in the Seahawks. So different animal coming to town this week.